Have you seen any of these artworks around Hawaii? Do you recognize any of them? They're all objects of art on public display. They reflect the people and events important in our Hawaiian culture. They add to the aesthetic beauty of our environment, and they're all examples of three-dimensional art.
But what is three-dimensional art?
Three-dimensional art, or 3D art, is an art piece surrounded by space. It's an artwork that we can see from all sides. It occupies space from top to bottom and side to side. But unlike two-dimensional art, it also occupies space from front to back. This added dimension gives the art piece mass and provides the artist with new possibilities to express their ideas and feelings. The visual elements and the design principles play an important part. Do you remember the visual elements? Line, shape, color, texture, and finally it's space that puts the D into 2D and 3D art. How about the design principles? Some artists find that repetition is important in their work. Visual balance is another concern for artists. Variety may help to add interest. And artists may emphasize a particular element to create a center of interest. Artists use the visual elements and design principles in various combinations that will best help them express their ideas.
How do I create a three-dimensional art piece?
Let's watch closely as 3D art pieces are created. What's happening? What kinds of thoughts go through an artist's mind as they're creating? What processes do they go through? Why do they choose certain materials to work with? Let's take a look at how two artists make conscious choices that help bring the idea of family to life.
I've been working with clay in a way that kind of goes back to primitive man and how his first introduction was with clay. I basically stomp the slab out with my feet and with my hands and make impressions, handprints, footprints, prints of shoes and things, and that kind of represents, I think, man's touch on clay. And it's kind of like the first experience that I think man ever had was clay, was making his handprints and his things, making pottery and just making man-made things out of a material that was really widespread and just a lot of it around at that time. I do a process called pit firing, which is it's a primitive process of firing ceramics. And I think that's really important in my pieces where they don't have this tight control of glaze and decoration. And it becomes a more spontaneous way of firing the clay. And I think it matches the type of technique I use in assembling my pieces. I work in modular units, I work in small little units that can be taken apart like in puzzle pieces. And that way it keeps it freer and more spontaneous again in that no piece is just stuck in one solution, and that every piece can have more than one end product. And in that way, anywhere along in the process, I can change the piece by changing each unit. And that way it keeps it freer. lot of my ideas I get when I'm driving around in my truck and seeing a lot of the architectural structures going on during the freeway construction, like freeways and bridges and things that have a strong support. I think that's a big influence on the things I make. When I'm working, there's a lot of things that affect me, like my environment. I think the rumble of the freeway and listening to the children play across the street, I think that all affects me when I work. And it's not so much a distraction. I think it's inspirational in a way, and it keeps your mind from just being totally absorbed in your work, and it keeps you freer and more spontaneous. Three-dimensional art, successful three-dimensional art is art that you can experience from all around, really seeing something different every time you move your position in looking at the piece. I chose working with clay because I feel it's one of the materials where you can almost do anything with it or make anything with it. You can make it look like wood or plastic or rock or anything. A lot of my recent pieces had titles that kind of had words like structure and support, and it was beyond, you know, like supporting and buildings and stuff. It was more like, I think, support in a way that how your family supports you, and then in a structure, I think it's a structure of a family base, friends. Art's a way of making, I think, relationships and connections with people through clay or just through ceramics or through whatever medium I think you choose.
My name is Michael Tong, and I am what they consider a metalsmith. I also work in the field of what they sometimes consider silversmithing. I like to use copper. I used to work as a jeweler and used silver and gold, but I like to work a lot larger, so copper is a lot less expensive. I like working three-dimensionally and with metals because I can touch it, I can twist it, I can hammer it. I like to touch things that I'm working on. I remember when I was a painter, everything was more intellectual, where you have to think each step, use your mind. Family is a piece I'm doing for Kauai Community College. It's the first time I'm doing anything so big. I would try to show through the sculpture a feeling of three units, father, mother, child. They're separate entities or separate people, and yet they share something in common. First of all, I cut out the pattern or the round circle, and then I heat it with a torch. The heating is to soften the metal. When I heat it and then put it in ice cold water, the metal, instead of being hard, becomes soft, so I can work with it. The next step, after I clean the metal with acid, then I start pounding it with a hammer or shaping it. A lot of my pieces would take about 20 times of this process of heating and hammering until I get my desired shape. What I expect from people or hope to express to them when they look at my artwork is that we can share some emotional bond that we both can relate to. Art, I think, is something that grows with you. If you look at it when you're 8 years old and you look at it when it's 28 years old, the same piece, you'll still enjoy it and you still feel you've gotten something from it.
art is a means of communicating. It's a way of expressing the special feelings and ideas that are in each of us. We've seen two different artists at work. Each started with a feeling. Each chose a different 3D material. But in arranging their materials, each artist expressed the same idea: family.
I'm ready to give it a try.
Wait. Before you start, think about how you'd like to arrange your 3D composition. The visual elements and design principles are the building blocks of art. There are countless ways of arranging them. Each arrangement makes a different art statement. How could you create the feeling of motion? You can make your work feel stable or unstable. The choice is up to you. Anyone can create a three-dimensional art piece. Just start with an idea, then choose a medium. Let the design principles be your guide as you arrange the visual elements into a finished 3D work of art. As you begin to create your three-dimensional art piece, think about the feeling or idea that you'd like to share. Which medium will you choose to work with? Which combination of visual elements and design principles will you use in your creative expression? Artists, in a number of different ways, can make exciting statements.